I'd like to take a moment to briefly introduce our two panelists and our wonderful moderator for the evening, and then I'll turn it over to them. So, Serge Bakalian is the executive director of the Arab Film Festival. He was born and raised in BEIRUT, Lebanon, and immigrated to Los Angeles in the 80s. He has expertise that extends well beyond film. He holds a bachelor's degree in chemistry from Cornell and a master's in international relations from LSE, London School of Economics. And he worked for several years in the United Nations and for Greenpeace International before catching the filmmaking bug that brought him to the Bay Area. In 2007, Serge came to San Francisco to begin a fresh career developing and producing film and theater projects. And he has since taken the helm of the Arab Film Festival, where he's breathed new life and vision into the festival and the impact of its local programming as well as its international partnerships. So welcome, Serge. Nasser is the artistic director of the Arab Film Festival. And Deana was born in Southern California, like myself, and she earned her undergraduate degrees in sociology and international relations from the University of Southern California. She holds a law degree from Howard University in DC and has several years of experience as an entertainment attorney. Deana joined the Muslim Public Affairs Council in 2010 as the Hollywood liaison, where she engaged decision makers in the entertainment industry to promote and foster nuanced and accurate descriptions of Muslim Americans and Muslim societies. And she continues this important and urgent work through her role at the Arab Film Festival, and we are very delighted to have her join us here today. So welcome, Deana. Also joining us for this conversation is Dr. Ramzi Salti, who is certainly no stranger to Stanford University, the Arab Film Festival, and to many of you in our audience tonight. Dr. Ramzi is one of our most popular and passionate lecturers at Stanford's Arabic program, where he has inspired students since 1998. He's amassed several prestigious awards during his years at Stanford, from the Dean's Award for Distinguished Teaching to the Favorite Professor Award by the John S. Knight Fellowship Program several times over. He was born in Lebanon and holds numerous degrees, including a bachelor's from Santa Clara University, a master's and PhD in comparative literature from UC Riverside. Dr. Salti is the author of The Native Informant and Other Stories, a collection of short stories dealing with unmentionable aspects of Arab life in parts of the Arab world and in the West. He's also published essays and articles in World Literature Today, the Journal of Arabic Literature, the LA Times, and many other publications. Beyond his work in the classroom, as many of you are probably familiar, Ramzi is also famously the creator and voice of Arabology, a wildly popular blog, weekly podcast, and radio program on KZSU Stanford 90.1 FM. DJ Ramzi is a fervent advocate for artists of every genre, and celebrates Arabic expression in all of its inventive forms, from classical poetry to cutting-edge indie rock. He's interviewed and DJed events featuring some of our favorite celebrities, from musicians like Blondie and Mashhur Leila, Yasmin Hamdan, and Amar Afendam, and the list goes on. So we are very honored and delighted to have him here this evening as our discussion moderator for Arab Shorts. Welcome, Ramzi. The stage over to our fabulous MC. I'd like to remind you that following this evening's discussion, we're going to be inviting you all to join us for a reception in the lobby, where we hope the conversations that begin in this auditorium can continue about the films, about the festival, and everything they engage. So just a quick note on procedure. If you'd like to ask a question for the panelists, please just raise your hand, and either Ramzi or I will indicate for you to please just stand up, share your name, and a brief question. We want to hear from as many people as are interested in engaging in the conversation. And I'm going to let Ramzi take it from here. So thank you all very much, and give one more welcome to our panelists.
Thank you, Mona Damluji. I can't say it enough. I love this young lady. She is, of course, she has turned the Markaz from an amazing place to an awesome place with everything she's doing, and her collaboration with Serge and the Arab Film Festival today. It's like we brought the best of all the world together into these films tonight. Thank you very much, Serge and Deana, for everything you do. And Mona, do you need to sit down, because we noticed a little bump? You are okay, I guess. So I'm going to ask Serge one question, I'm going to ask Deana one question, and then we'll turn it over to you, and it'll be like just about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then we'll go talk and get refreshments. So I want to say thank you to everybody who came here today. I don't want to get personal, but many of you today know that I've been through a little bit of a difficult time lately. And some of you have come to see me, so I want to say, hey, I'm not even, like, I'm good and I'm on stage. I'm that good. Thank you so much for everybody who wrote and who sent emails. And then also to say how the power of film, and really these kind of short films, have kept me going through the worst times. You get lost, each film takes you in a different place, a different location, different genre. And I think Serge did a really good job, of bringing us a nice sample, because these guys have to screen hundreds and hundreds of films to come up with these. So maybe I'll begin with Serge and ask you about the selection that you chose today. You chose based on what criteria?
I'm sure Deana can speak a little bit more
Sure,
programming, but this is, this is a representation of some of the best films from the last 3 years.
Is your mic on, Serge?
Is this better? I'll just project. So this is actually represents some of the best films from the last 3 to 4 festivals, which also includes, Ave Maria, which was the 4th one we screened, which was an Oscar nominee.
This year, yes.
It's an eclectic mix of comedy and serious subjects, so, but all of them sort of pass our artistic sort of barometer of what we require at the Arab Film Festival.
Deana, what kind of movies are you seeing coming out of the Arab world lately? I know right now, by the way, the Arab Film Festival is accepting submissions so that people can actually submit their films, and the Arab Film Festival will be in October in San Francisco. I hope we'll all be there, because they do an amazing launch party at the Gastro Theater, usually in San Francisco, and then a party afterwards. So, Deana, what kind of films are you seeing lately coming out of the Arab world? Not only in terms of themes and genres, but also in terms of maybe issues relating to feminism, to issues that are social and political.
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I noticed, this is only my 2nd year of programming, but I'm already noticing that there's a different tone. Last year, there was this kind of like, I don't know, like nostalgia, dream state kind of thing that we saw in a lot of films, like people exploring the memory of the home that they once knew. And, especially, folks who've dealt with like being displaced and people who are dealing with war. They kind of, there were a couple of films that were like snapshots of the past or exploring what it felt like to live in their home. This year, it's too early to tell, but I have noticed that there is this like very cool women empowerment, like what women's lives look like, like an intimate look at Arab women and their life. And that's really exciting. Like I said, it's still very early, but coincidentally, the first handful of films, that I've reviewed have been about that.
A shining example of an Arab American woman right here. Serge, you want to make a quick announcement about something pretty fabulous that happened this year? I've been tweeting and blogging about it, so it's out there, but about the marriage of the Arab cinema with the Arab Film Festival in Berlin.
Yeah, sure. So we're really fortunate in the area. The Arab Film Festival's been, so this is our 20th year. And we're quite fortunate. We're the largest and the oldest Arab festival outside of the Arab world, and that's something we definitely take pride in. But it's also been very important for us to take it to the next level, to really establish the Arab Film Festival as an international organization. And so something that's been in development in the last couple of years, we along with some of the top media makers and producers in the Arab world, we officially launched something called Arab Cinema Center, which was announced at the Berlinale, which is one of the most important film and cultural festivals back in February. So it really puts the Arab Film Festival at, sort of in the forefront of the Arab cinema movement, not just in the Arab world, but again, hopefully with some of the things we want to create here in the US as well.
Well, I know you guys work really hard for this. So I know there's going to be questions, I hope, and the beautiful Aisha is going to ask a question right over here. Go ahead, Aisha. You want to stand up and ask? I can hear you.
Okay. So first of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for all of the work that you guys do. I wanted to acknowledge that it's obviously extremely, sorry, I hope everyone can hear me. It's obviously extremely hard to put together something like this, but in the political moment, in the moment that we find ourselves in, I think it's wonderful to see these spaces created, and it's been such a long tradition. And I guess my question pertains to that. That in the films I noticed that, we have a sense in mainstream cinema that we're going to see particular kinds of themes in films where Arabs and Muslims are represented, where the Middle East is features in any kind of big way. Those are, the typical gender tropes, violence, extremism. And what I loved about these films that you've selected is that while they talk about really current things, we see the gender dynamics at play. There's a fullness in the narratives. We're seeing the everyday texture of life. And I guess I wondered how you guys, is that a conscientious decision on your part? And just tell us a little bit about your process, I guess.
I'm going to turn it over to the head of programming, Deana, but I did want to say that when we were watching these films, sometimes some of my American friends were saying, but no one blew themselves up. When are they going to blow themselves up? When is that going to happen? Everybody's waiting for that moment. I mean, they're like, but that's cold language when he said salam alaikum. And the idea, I think, from these films, at least what I got, what Eric and Ahmed told me, it's so refreshing to see the Arab world and Arabs and Middle Easterners being portrayed in a way that is not just act, unlike mainstream media. But I think, Deana, you'd have a lot more to inform this discourse since you are the head of programming.
So this is the funny thing. We don't have to try very hard to create any diversity and representation. It's just what we see. It's what's presented to us. And so our job is actually pretty easy because we just pick the best films and make sure there's like a, some kind of, it's curated and it kind of flows nicely. But I mean, it's kind of the disconnect between what people think, how people think Arabs are versus how Arabs actually are. I mean, there's like a whole valley in between the two, We got so many films, last year I remember somebody asking me, so how many films did you get about Western imperialism? Like how many people touched the conversation of colonialism, Western imperialism? No one submitted anything that directly touched on that. Which, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing that, but it didn't show up. That's not what they're talking about, And so our job is to simply showcase what people are talking about, what the conversation is, And as you see, they're talking about everything we're talking about. So again, it's not that difficult. Do you want to add anything?
Sure. And the great thing about that, it resonates really well with our non-Arab audiences because they get to see, oftentimes the way Arabs in the Arab world, Arab people are represented in Western media, including independent films. It's not just Hollywood films. It's this very monolithic view of this entire region. And it's great for non-Arabs to come to our festival and watch a love story, watch a coming-of-age story, watch things that actually can connect us, and it's it really resonates outside of it goes beyond the screening. So that's been something wonderful to see.
So the lady with the cute baby over here, and then the person over there. Go ahead, do you want to, and if you want to ask بالعربي, we'll be happy to translate into English. Almost nus Englabic. Oh, Arabisi.
So, I mean, you guys started touching on this, but you didn't kind of finish it off, which is people who are interested and people who have connections, come and watch these kinds of movies and get that perspective. But how do we give it to the rest of the Western world? How do we expand on, like you're saying, getting them to see this side of, the human side of the Arab? Because I'm, still on TV. It's still prevalent that we're being represented as terrorists. And how do we get this kind of exposure more public? Because actually, I didn't even know about this. It was, I'm a Stanford employee. I didn't even hear about this. My friend who isn't told me about it. But, how do we expand exposure?
Well, I think right there, spread the message. Number two, we are very lucky that this area of the systematic demonization of Islam and the Middle East, there's something called the internet, which, thank God, is still relatively accessible. And people are getting their knowledge over there too. So if we were relying on the mainstream media, forget about it. And I think we need to take advantage of those platforms. So for my radio show, Arabology on KZSU Stanford, 90.1 FM, it's one of those, we are like better than NPR, but we're like NPR in terms of this is free speech radio, and I take advantage of that. I noticed there was no programming that dealt with the Middle East. There wasn't necessarily any that were against, but there just wasn't a representation. So to try to find this, and I think that's what Serge and Deana are constantly trying to do, is to fill the gap where mainstream cinema fails us and hurts us. I'm so sick of mainstream TV these days. Every other show has fake actors with fake Arabic accents, doing all sorts of awful stuff, and to get to see this, and to bring friends. I mean, my Eric Dobson right here is not Arab, though he's been Arabicized, and he sat through the movie reacting to the humor, to the jokes, and relating, and I think that's what it's about, at least to me.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Ramzi said, and I think that Serge and I and the rest of the AFF team, we've been thinking about this question on a strategy, as thinking about our strategy as an organization, and how we can make more headway. And I think that it's a process, but it is going to be a process that involves engaging sort of the mainstream, but on our terms. And the great thing is that we're positioned, we're in a good position. The festival has been, developed a reputation over the last 20 years where we get the best of what comes out of the Arab world. And the next step now is to show that to the right people. And really we're talking about opening up the film market and making Arab film something that is, one day hopefully consumed by mainstream audiences. And I don't think that that's necessarily such a stretch to imagine that. So that's kind of where our sights are and where we're looking. Did you want to add anything?
And just to add to that, is that we're part of some of the partnerships that we're forming is to be able to showcase our films beyond our festival in October. So not just doing screenings like this year round, but we're currently formed a partnership with a company called MoviePix. So it's sort of the streaming it's sort of the Netflix of the Arab world, so that anybody in North America can watch our programming. So I would definitely say, at the very basic, I would say come to the festival, bring a friend, a colleague, a coworker to the festival, because that's how it starts. I think we're doing good work. I'm not just saying that because we run the organization, but it's we don't have the marketing budget that some of the other organizations do, even though we're doing, I believe, programming at that level, if not more. So it really helps out when the community champions us as much as we champion the community.
So I promised someone over there who had their hand out Who was it? Okay, so this is an amazing person I'm gonna embarrass you. This is my good friend BEIRUT, who I've been teaching with at Stanford for over 16 years. I look 16 years younger, older. She has not changed. Yes, BEIRUT, go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you for this amazing opportunity and wonderful film. And I wanted to ask if you see any differences, major differences in themes between the short movies that you are receiving and the long features?
That's a good question. The difference in themes between the short movies, such as the ones we saw, and feature movies in Arabic. Do you see a difference in themes? Or are you pretty much the same?
Well, actually, that's a really good question. Off the top of my head, there is a difference in terms of, obviously, I think the shorter films are working with smaller budgets, and so they tend to tell very personal stories about their families, their surroundings, their community, and the locations aren't as varied and that sort of thing. The films that are the bigger films, most of them have, I'm trying to think of, they're pretty impressive in their range of location and, depth of story and that sort of thing. So yeah, but I would have to really kind of, yeah, and that for sure. What Serge said is that short filmmakers are taking more risks, and the stories are more experimental. So there's a lot of experimenting. There's a lot of experimenting with sound, and we had this great piece last year. This woman, Besma, her last name is Besma Youssef. She's an experimental filmmaker. She took soundscapes that she got from Gaza, and she just did kind of a, I don't know, it was a really kind of trippy experience that she went through some old ruins, but had sounds from Gaza in the background, and it just was really kind of fascinating to watch, but you couldn't really do that in a feature, so there was a lot of that kind of eye-catching things in shorts.
Nevertheless, both the short features and the films are taking risks. You should see some of the movies we screen, I think. They're kind of like, some of them, they're amazing, but they're not necessarily for, under 18.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll be outside. And the one and only one, Damluji, Shukran. Thank you to everybody.